Yo, what's up guys? It's your boy Nitrostorm here. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas to you all. Welcome back to RevivedWitch, and I decided to give you guys a PvE tier list as my gift to you this Christmas. Now you might think it's a lame present, which I apologize for, but a number of you have been requesting me all the time to create a tier list of some sort, as there's not really many or any updated tier lists out there that are, useful. I haven't checked any if there are any good ones out there, but in any case, I've decided to make my own PvE tier list, not PvP. If you do want me to make one of those, then feel free to let me know down in the comments below. Just a few discrepancies and things to note when it comes to this tier list is that, first things first, this is based on my opinion on top of what I've observed and my experiences over the year of me playing RevivedWitch from launch. For example, taking a look at the rankings of Path Not Taken over time, and same for Evil Return and Evil Return Rebirth, for those fastest clears. And you can assume that if they're good in Path Not Taken and Evil Return, then they're probably going to be good in other PvE scenarios, such as doing events and clearing general content and general main story progression. Now, lastly, the website that I've used is on the top left here. I used the RevivedWitch DB, RevivedWitch database, just to make things more simple when doing this tier list. Now, one last thing, actually, I think I'm going to be strict here, meaning I'm not going to be listing all the dolls, because as you can see here, there's basically too many to make a short video in terms of tier lists. I think I'll make it very strict, and then I'll group up them, I'll group up the dolls in certain categories, just so it doesn't fill up the thing. But if you do want me to make a very detailed tier list, you can request that as well. I'll make an updated version, so I'll make this one. No, we'll keep it like that. I'll make a detailed one if you want me to in the comments below. So we're going to be getting started with physical. So I've grouped them up. I've separated them into 3 categories: DPS, support, and tank. Now, the way that this would work is essentially DPS is just main damage. Support is anything to do with either healing or boosting overall team DPS, or boosting overall team damage taken. Reducing team damage taken, that also helps. And then for tank is how much damage they can soak, their potential to protecting your other dolls, like protecting your whole team. And that's basically it. Survivability and protecting your whole team. That's for tank category. So that means some dolls will cover 2 different roles, and I'm going to be ranking them separately based on what they can do for each role. So I've put in a bunch already, right, just to start things off. I put DPS Isabel at the top. For supports, we have Tuanel, Dorin, and Amurai. And then for tanks, we have Catherine and Caledonia. And then for S rank, we have Cher, Catherine, and Caledonia. So just a quick overview: Isabel obviously DPS, single target mostly, but can still work on content where there's like two enemies, 2 or 3, as long as it's physical recommended. And then for supports, Tuanel and Dorin normally used in physical teams, but manual for the most part if you're using Dorin. Amurai and Tuanel combo with Isabel can be used on auto, whilst Tuanel, Dorin, and Isabel is mainly used manual. For tank, obviously Catherine is able to protect all allies with her cover and able to resist a lot of damage. Caledonia can heal herself as well as healing the whole party, as well as giving everyone damage reduction. And then Catherine and Caledonia as supports, they can provide the defense, physical defense reduction, and Caledonia can do that better. But Catherine is instant, so it depends on what you want. And then Cher, I gave her a red aura around her because her best use in the endgame PvE content is as a sacrifice. So you can utilize Cher's passive, which I'll show here right now. For the next 10 seconds, allied dolls increase their damage dealt and health restoration by 2% whenever they crit, stacking up to 40%. I'm not sure if it's a bug or something, but I think it lasts more than 10 seconds. As in, like, even if she's sacrificed, this buff still stays in place, and then the dolls can stack up these buffs, right? Even though she's gone, and I think that lasts over 10 seconds still, but you know, I'll probably have to double check that. But in any case, this does work, and so that's why she's great for increasing damage, and she is Brimstone element. Now, wait, was it Brimstone element? Yeah, but I believe she's Brimstone element. Yeah, yep. All right. And that's pretty much what I've added so far. Now, technically speaking, to be strict, this is actually basically the tier list done, to be honest with you. In terms of endgame PvE content like Evil Return Rebirth and Path Not Taken. Mainly because for physical teams, Isabel, that's it. Like, it's essentially Isabel or nothing. Well, that's if you want to get the, I guess, top rankings / getting the highest scores, as in maxing out on that day for Path Not Taken. Mainly because Isabel was, you know, not really miscoded, but they put in the, I guess, the wrong multipliers. But obviously they can't really nerf after release, because it's not really a game that works on balancing, right? Technically there is balancing, but you know, it's one of those where it's like it's a lose-lose kind of thing. So they just decided to just leave her and not make any changes. But due to that, she's OP. So I can add others, but when it comes to PvE content, no one really uses anyone else outside of Isabel. So if I were to add anyone else to the DPS list, is basically up to speculation whether or not they're going to be performing that well. And then when it comes to supports, it's really just these that I've seen. There is an extra one that you can use that isn't Brimstone or Saltstone, and that is Sir Civi. I'll put her up S. The same thing as Cher. Let's add the similar glow. And that's mainly because she is also used mainly as a sacrifice for the 50% damage taken by the enemy, as you can see on her passive there. So Civi's enemy's Marken takes 50% more damage, and that's essentially permanent unless the enemy has like a transform mechanic, which they will not really transform, but like if they have different phases or an ability that cleanses their abilities, cleanses any debuffs. If they have those, then Civi's passive would be removed. But yeah, outside of this, honestly, no one else really is being used, but I will add some, you know, as a way of saying like honorable mentions. Alright, so as you can see, there was a big jump from my previous, just a few seconds ago. Essentially the rest is basically no, basically like kind of like speculation, and because mainly because you don't really see anyone else in terms of like the end game PvE content outside of Isabel for DPS. So the rest is mainly based on how I feel about their performances. The bottom row where it's like I'm unsure would either be because I either don't have them or I'm not too confident in just by looking at their kits to see or to know where they would place, but it's going to be definitely at least a B. And then for the supports, of course, I put them like this. For example, at C rank, all three of them, Kamui, Flare, and Cassis, they are mainly HP based, and HP based dolls are more effective for PvP. Hence why I placed them at C rank, because their skills are less effective in PvE modes as the HP isn't buffed there. And the others here, it depends on like how the unique equipment works as well. So for example, Dane Lim's UE, Dane Lim is basically like a mini 2NL, but her unique equipment is very RNG heavy, and so I put her down to A rank. And then Ninsa, you could argue that her kit isn't that good, but she does at least provide some order energy regen increase with her passive, with a combination of her first skill and passive. And obviously for tank, it's either how well they can tank if they are destroyer, or if they're an actual guardian, which is actually pretty rare if you see it. There's only three guardians for physical: Catherine, Caledonia, and Sanva. But yeah, this is pretty much it for physical. If you do have any comments in regards to this list, you can let me know down in the comments below. It's still a work in progress, even though I've given this out, mainly because there's so many dolls and I don't have all of them. In any case, let's now move on to the magical PvE tier list. Before I start, it's going to be a similar thing when it comes to the magical tier list. You normally, because of the dolls being used, are mainly the same ones. So I'll place the ones that are most used and stuff like that, and then put the rest in based on how I feel about them. Oh, one quick thing before I go back to magical, I added the Lilia here. She's there for if you need some order energy regen. Alright, now let's go to the magical. So this is what I've got, what I ended up with. No tanks. Normally when you do magical teams, normally you put all Mercury element to get the same element bonus. 10% to all stats if your main team is all of the same element, and then 15% to attack, defense, and HP if all 6 your whole party is the same element. Hence why 2NL is actually rated lower. She's actually rarely used in magic teams nowadays. It's taken over by Edine and Amanami. Sometimes Edine, Shiroi, and Goddess Dana, after you sacrificed one of these 3 or 2 of them, depending on the content. And in terms of tank, none's really being used. And so in terms of end game high tier content, this is essentially what you're looking at. I put Maya Huel there as a consolation prize, but she's rarely used nowadays. But after these 2, she's essentially your next best pick, essentially. And so in terms of the rest of the additions, keep in mind as the previous tier list of physical, is mainly from speculation at this point, as these are rarely used in Path Not Taken and Evil Rebirth. Alright, so I've added all the current URs that are available, or at least going to be available, as well as some SSRs. They're like honorable mentions as well. So keep in mind these are after the tier list I've done for the first part, where it was only like a few DPSs and then some supports, and then now I've added the rest, and the rest is in terms of my from my own experience and from my own opinions in regards to each character and how they may perform in the PvE content, like Path Not Taken, Evil Return, and overall PvE performance. Some of these characters could be ranked higher, but sometimes on some of them there's like a niche that they have that doesn't really have a use yet, and so they may be rated lower than what they could be. Gervig is a special case. For example, she's in all three. She's in all three categories, mainly because she transforms, but it's a special kind of transformation where if that transformation is defeated, she goes back to her normal state, which is a separate HP bar, and then the support comes from the healing that she can do, and then DPS obviously because it's a decent multiplier, but it's still pretty low. Anemone is another nice mention. She is the only character in the game that is in the standard pool only. You cannot pull her outside of the standard pool. She's not in any featured banner whatsoever. She's only able to be pulled in standard banner where there is no rate up for Anemone. So unless you re-rolled for her, it's going to take a lot of luck to get her. Minne, Nicholas, they're pretty good, but Minne requires manual play, similar case to Goddess Dana. Nicholas is pretty good. Now Claire isn't out yet, but her kit is very promising. We just need to find out how she actually performs in game, and we also don't know what her UE is going to be like because it's not out yet, like her banner's not out yet. So that's why I put her in between S and A, because that's where I'm feeling where she's going to be at. And that's pretty much about it for my tier list. I didn't add Doran for magical teams, mainly because she's rarely, if not used in magical teams, mainly because of the plethora of supports that are available that are of Mercury element. And as I mentioned before, tanks are rarely used in terms of endgame PvE content like Path Not Taken and Evil Return Rebirth. Well, tanks can be used in Evil Return Rebirth if the content gets a bit too difficult, but otherwise, mainly using supports alongside DPS. So it's an overall, an overall thing of the tier lists. Physical, this is how it looks like, or at least in my opinion. And then this is magical, at least in my opinion. Not all of the SSRs are added. SRs and below are most likely like D rank for the most part. However, some of the Rs, for example, can be used to cheese content, right? Early game content, to perma-stun enemies, for example, with Aval and Suzerni. You can check my Broken Lands guide on that. But yeah, if you got any suggestions, questions, criticism, Do let me know down in the comments below. Just because I made this tier list doesn't mean it's like the final form. This is just how I feel about how the current state of the game is when it comes to PvE in RevivedWitch. I did show two different halves of each tier list. So the first half of the physical tier list was the most used, the top characters for Path Not Taken and Evil Return Rebirth. And then after I added the rest of the physical characters, that is more so overall PvE performance. Same goes for magical. The first half was mainly the most used magical characters when it comes to magical teams in Path Not Taken and Evil Return Rebirth. And then after I added the rest of the dolls, now the tier list was more so overall PvE performance. So again, if you got any more questions, criticisms, or anything to do with RevivedWitch, do let me know that in the comments below. I'll be sure to respond. Hopefully you found this video useful. Perhaps you already knew where these characters are gonna go. Let me know, please, if you have anything to say in regards to this video. It's been your boy Nitrostorm. I'll see you guys in the next stream or video. Peace.